Hello, and welcome to an all new episode of The Spotlight. My name is Kente. I'm one of your hosts, all the way live from Los Angeles, California. And I'm here with my wonderful and beautiful, talented co host, the one, the only Jen. How you doing, Jen?
Hey, I'm great. It is a beautiful day in Hawaii. There is no lava anywhere and nothing in the air, so we are golden.
All right. Well, shoot, that's a good thing to know. Being that I just saw Jurassic World last night and saw the lava, I had to think about you and make sure that you're okay and all the people that as
Yes.
well.
Hawaii is also dinosaur free, just in case anybody's worried.
Oh, well, that's good to know because
Yeah.
we can't have we can't have you getting eaten by those monsters. So tonight we have a very special guest coming back to indie radio. And wait, before we get to our guest, I see that Yardley has joined us as well. How you doing, Yardley?
Hey, I'm doing good. I'm just trying to figure out why my video is not showing.
Okay.
Hey, what's up, Sean? How you doing?
Good in yourself, sir.
Hey, I am doing good. I'm just gonna work on this camera. Y'all go ahead.
All right. So our guest is a terrific actor from South Africa. So him, and Yardley, we're all Africans. So we are. It's the one and only Sean Cameron. Michael, how you doing, man?
Good, man. Thanks so much for having me, man. How you guys doing? It's been a while, right?
I know it has been a while, and there's so much to talk about. We are obviously big fans of your work. And haven't had an opportunity on our other show, Talking Black Sales. We had a chance to chop it up with you. The last time we had you on, it was a very somber show because you had just been, spoiler alert, killed off. For those who haven't seen the show's been that was a couple of years ago. So this one is definitely more joyous in that you're alive. so, so we get to talk.
Thank God.
Talk about that. So. But for those who may not have seen that interview that we did with you, can you just kind of give us a little background on yourself, where you're from, and how active you've been since we last talked to you?
Yeah, and I'm originally from Cape Town, South Africa, born and bred Cape Townian or South African. I started acting when I was 12 years old, started in theatre. I come from a theatrical family. My mum was a professional dancer. My dad was an opera singer. So when I was a kid, I was really sort of surrounded by all these theatricals, singing and dancing and having parties the whole time. So for me, it was, I was really fortunate from a young age. I knew that this is a career path that I want to follow and pursue. So yeah, I mean, after my schooling, I moved from Cape Town to Johannesburg, South Africa, which is sort of the main hub of the TV industry, and got into TV presenting for a few years, some script writing for a few years, worked in a soapy there called Igoli, Place of Gold. Did that for a bit, and really over the past. God, I do sound old, but over the past 3 decades, I've tried to, do as much theatre work and TV and film work and voiceovers and commercials to survive as an actor. What's great about the entertainment industry in South Africa is that it's a facilitating industry. So over the past 20, 30 years, there have been so many American and international TV and film productions coming to film in South Africa. There's amazing tax incentives and rebates for them. A lot of co-productions happening between the States or the UK and South Africa. And so, really over the last sort of 2-3 decades, I've been fortunate to really work on a lot of international productions, and slowly sort of start at the bottom and build up those credits. And my sort of big break, I suppose, was they were doing the 24 TV series, and between season 6 and season 7, there was a writer's strike in LA. And so what they decided to do was to come to South Africa, to Cape Town, and shoot a movie called 24 Redemption. And so the director on that was John Cassar, producer Howard Gordon, and obviously 24 was a big deal. And so I was lucky to get a supporting role in that movie, which was shot in Cape Town for quite a couple of weeks. And I played a really evil character. I seem to play a lot of evil baddies, a lot of villains. I played this Charles Solens, who was this French UN worker who was, just sort of doing his job and not really wanting to sort of take any sort of accountability. And the role in the movie actually caused quite a lot of sort of controversy, which was cool. It's great when you play a role that is controversial and sort of, is sort of in the public eye. But yeah, so 24 Redemption, which was back in 2008.
One thing about that is I've actually talked about it on the show a couple of times about your performance in that. If you're a fan of that show 24, they had so many villains that really stand out, right? And I remembered you very well, and you're like, when I remember just going, what a jerk, the character. So when I saw you in Black Sails, I always remembered that character very well, because if you haven't seen it, I don't know if Yardley or Jen has seen it, he's definitely someone you don't root for in that movie, and you did a fantastic job, by the way.
Thank you so much, man. I've always felt that my job, especially sort of, starting in the industry and getting the opportunity to work on international productions, most of the time those American or British productions, when they arrive in South Africa, they already arrive with their main cast in place. So as South African actors, we get the opportunity to play maybe smaller supporting roles. And what I realized, fortunately, years ago, was that my job is to be supportive of those lead actors and to help push that storyline. So in the case of 24, you've got your hero, who is Kiefer Sutherland, and he needed he needed this protagonist who was going to go up against him and be an absolute arsehole, who was going to be a baddie and make his life tough. That's exactly what I set out to do. I mean, I didn't realize at the time, when we shot 24, that I mean, obviously, with 24, I knew it was a big deal. It was, I was so excited to be working on it. But when that episode, or 24 Redemption, actually premiered on American TV back in 2008, I think about 12 million people tuned in. And because of my character, the producers on the show, specifically Howard Gordon, who had also written the screenplay, actually had to make a public statement justifying my character, trying to justify why they had made this UN character such a baddie. And the answer to that was that sometimes in bad situations or tricky situations, people are human beings. You get some people who rise to the challenge, and they are heroes and they do the right thing, but then you get other people who don't. They just probably sit there and ask, and that's the character that I was playing. So, yeah, hey, how's that?
Well,
camera's working.
Let me ask you something real quick. To kind of piggyback off of those types of characters in particular, looking at you on social media and looking at how the part of you that you choose to share with us as fans about your life, it seems like you take a lot of things seriously as far as your diet and your mental health and giving back. And you just seem to be a person who kind of, you're very conscious of the things that are going on around you. So with you being the way that you are, how do you prepare to be an asshole in a movie? it's so contrary to what you seem to be, and I'm wondering, like, what was your inspirations for playing such good assholes on TV?
It's kind of interesting. I've always actually played the same character. It's one of these interesting things. I think once casting directors sort of figure out what you write for, they kind of put you in a box. and you end up playing the same role essentially for the rest of your career. And my first before 24, when I was still in my early 20s, I worked on a show called The Adventures of Sinbad with Zen Gessner. And yeah, I think I must have been about 20 years old. And the role that I played in that was a character called Timur. And what the character was somebody who maybe appeared to be a baddie, but then turned out to be a goodie. Or I play goodies who turn out to be baddies. So there's always a duality to these characters. And it was the same with 24, it was the same with Black Sails, it was the same with Blood Drive, it was the same with all the roles that I played over the years. And really to answer your question, I think, I'm naturally, I believe, a really down-to-earth, easy-going, fun-loving kind of guy. And I try to live a lifestyle that is healthy and good. I have, good morals and principles and ethics. And for me, what acting is an escape to play all these roles and be all these things that are 100% completely a 360, turn of who I am as a person.
Yeah.
Also, and so for me, it's exciting and challenging to play these evil, villains and baddies, because it's so different to who I am. And so for me, it's I know it's a sort of a weird thing, but it's a form of escapism in a way, to be playing a pirate or be playing a baddie or a serial killer or whatever. I find that as an actor, I find it incredibly challenging. Also, growing up in South Africa, especially in the years of apartheid or apartheid, I was, as I say, I was acting from a young age, and so I had, and the household that I was brought up in was a very sort of carefree, theatrical, bohemian kind of life. And I didn't really know much about politics or racism or apartheid and all these kind of things. And at that time in South Africa, when I finished my schooling, I was forced to go to, I didn't have a choice. I had to do 2 years national service in the South African Army. And at that time, it was, that was in the early 80s. It was during the times of apartheid where, as I said, I didn't have a choice. I had to do 2 years compulsory national service. And I was, as a young kid at the age of 18, 19, I had all these sergeant majors and corporals and lieutenants who, sorry, this is really controversial, but they really were a bunch of absolute racists. And the politics at that time in South Africa was all black people are evil and they must die. Now, for me, as a South African, as an actor who's been acting, as a kid, I had, black friends or African friends and Indian friends. And for me, this was such a bizarre, weird concept. And the politics of the country, South Africa was also under, lots of, South Africa was, was being banned. There was lots of, by the US, there was lots of, I can't think of the word right now. But so, yeah, a lot of my bad evil characters that I play are based on the corporals and sergeant majors and these racist idiots that I came into contact with when I was in my teens.
Wow.
So that's really what I do. A lot of them are based on these evil people that I actually, came into contact with and spent 2 years of my life.
Now, since you've been playing these characters, I don't know what your relationship status is, but I can imagine if you play all these characters, that possibly when you're trying to meet a lady, do they go, wait a minute, you're that crazy guy? Does that happen, or are people mainly intrigued maybe by it, or what?
It's really interesting. It's really interesting that. I'm naturally actually a very shy, private person. And actually, I think most people are. Most actors are naturally actually really shy and introverted. And we use acting as a platform to, be extroverted. It's really, for most actors, that I know, we're actually very, very shy people. And so, yes, when I meet people, especially, when they, let's say, recognize me or know me from TV or film, they by default take it for granted that I'm going to be this really intense, I don't know, bad, arrogant, evil, weird, sick person. It's really bizarre, and I was like, it's called acting. It's not rocket science. It's just called acting. And people are genuinely, seriously, within 5 minutes, people will say to me, "But you seem so down to earth and normal and friendly and okay." So yeah, absolutely. It is difficult meeting when I do meet people, or as I said, people aren't naturally drawn to me. Because they just take it for granted. Well, I am the characters that I play, or that I must be kind of psychotic or weird or strange. Anyway, so no, it didn't really bode well for my love life. in that sense.
Well, the kind of go back to something that was mentioned earlier, and how you were talking about how the movie industry sometimes, because of tax breaks and things like that, where you're at, people do like to shoot movies. And I was looking at your gram. We both follow each other on there, and it's pretty fun watching your journey. But there, actually, I think it was one of your last posts. You were talking about Broken Darkness, that movie.
Yeah.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you were saying it was your first lead role in a South African film.
Yeah.
Hey, could you tell us a little bit about that, or is it, or are you kind of hush hush on that?
No, absolutely. It's I've made a point. My philosophy as an actor has always been, I just want to work, and I never want to stop learning and growing and experiencing as an artist. That sounds corny, but it really is good philosophy. And so it's very important for me, besides being an actor, because I'm also older now. In South Africa, we did a lot of acting coaching, working with casting directors, working with young writers and directors and producers and people sort of, starting in the industry. So I've consistently, over the past sort of 2-3 decades, tried to be very, very supportive of new, young actors and writers and directors and people entering the industry. In South Africa, so I still do lots of short films and music videos and work with young directors. And it's for me, it's been an amazing experience. Last Broken Darkness, or Broken Darkness, is a true testament to sort of paying one's dues. I'd met Christopher Lee dos Santos on a short film that I had shot 12 years ago. He was doing visual effects on that, and on that short film that subsequently only got released about 11 years later, because they never had the money to do all the visual effects and everything. The short film was called Tears in the Rain, which was paying homage to Blade Runner. So when Blade Runner, the new reboot of Blade Runner, if you like, came out, that was the same year that Tears in the Rain came out. And as I say, Chris dos Santos, who I'd worked with 12 years ago on Tears in the Rain, at that time it said to me, "Yo, Brew, one day I'm going to make a feature film and you're going to play the lead role." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." And absolutely, about 2-3 years ago, I got an email from Chris, and he said, "Look, I've written a screenplay for this movie. We're going to be shooting it in a couple of months in South Africa. I'd love you to play the lead." And so, yeah, Last Broken Darkness is something that we shot about 2 years ago. It's incredibly difficult, not only in South Africa, around the world, to get movies off the ground, and especially with indie movies. Last Broken Darkness is a movie that we shot over 26 days on location in Johannesburg. Most of it was night shoots. It was a really, really tough shoot. The movie, which is actually still being shopped around Hollywood right now. A lot of, Chris has been quite open about it. If you watch the movie, there's some pretty hectic visual effects and explosions and things going on in the movie, and it really looks and sounds amazing. I can't talk much about my acting in it, but producers in Hollywood have a look at it and they go, what was the budget of this? $10 million, $20 million? And then Chris goes, well, we made it for $95,000.
Oh my God.
Wow.
So it's really a testament to young directors making do with what they've got and trying to, put out quality productions. So yeah, Last Broken Darkness has been something. It went to the Boston Sci-Fi Film Festival, won Best Actor, Best Screenplay. It's won a couple of awards around the world. They're hoping to try and get international distribution for it. But obviously, it's a really, really tough thing, making an indie movie and getting it out there. Because what I've subsequently learned, especially in the context of Hollywood, when it comes to working with sales agents and that, and distributors, it's almost like they don't really want to touch a movie that wasn't made for more than $10 million, because there's no money for them. They can't really make any money from it, and it's almost like nobody really takes a movie that was made for less than $10 million seriously. They take it for granted that it's going to be bad or it's going to be inferior. So, yeah, when indie movies that are made with minimal budgets do become a hit, do become a success, they really are the exception to the rule.
So I have a question for you. What, just in terms of the breadth of characters that you've played, what would you say is the character that has resonated the most with you? I don't mean is most like you, but just sort of you found yourself at ease playing.
After I'd done sales, once I'd finished with season 2 of Black Sails, which was maybe 3.5 years ago, I got my green card. I moved to the US, relocated over here, and started doing guest starring roles on TV, and then I got the opportunity to play a guest star on a TV series, season 3 of which was actually just premiered I think yesterday. And when I worked on season 1 of Shooter, I just gone in to do one episode, and what happened was, which is wonderful about Hollywood and the way TV works, is they're sort of rewriting episodes and rewriting storylines almost as they go along. And I'd maybe worked on episode 2 of Shooter, and then I was then booked in another episode, and they then decided to turn my character into like the lead baddie of season 1. And for me as an actor, I was so appreciative, for the opportunity. Oh my God, I was only going to do maybe 1 or 2 episodes, and now suddenly I was doing 4 or 5 episodes, and I'm getting to work with all these great actors like Omar Epps and Desmond Harrington, and obviously Ryan Philippe and Cynthia Adair Robinson, and suddenly, just going from playing a guest star with maybe 1 or 2 scenes, I was maybe in some episodes in 10 scenes. And as I said before, I was extremely thankful to the writers and the executive producer John Lavin, and I said, thank you so much for the opportunity. And he said to me, Sean, let me be clear. I'm not doing you a favor here. It's not like I'm trying to be your friend and be a nice guy. The fact of the matter is that you're doing good work, and it's because you're doing good work, and we recognize that we want to give you this opportunity to do more episodes, and do even better work and even greater work. And so, to answer your question in a sort of long roundabout way. Suddenly, for me, this was maybe 2 years ago. Suddenly, for me, I felt that I was being recognized as an artist and getting the opportunity to work with these great actors and And so for me, yeah, playing Grigory Krukov, this Russian character, on Shooter was an amazing opportunity. And for me as an actor, it was a breakthrough moment, because I really believe as an actor, for somebody especially who's been doing this for such a long time, you really only become as good as the opportunities that you get. And it is a case of working your butt off, and paying your dues over a certain period of time. But it's only really when a producer or writer or director sees potential in you and goes, okay, so you're not, let's say, a big star yet, but we're going to give you an opportunity to carry this show. I think as an actor, that's what every actor is hoping for, is the opportunity to really show people what you're made of. So yeah, absolutely. Shooter was really that big moment for me where I was really challenged and at times really scared, because it was a case of my character also had to speak fluent Russian. And
do you think that the role that you got in Shooter actually is what sort of propelled you to the role for Old Man Hart in Blood Drive?
Absolutely, absolutely. With Shooter, as I say, in Shooter, I was playing this Russian character, and I was speaking with a heavy Russian caricaturish accent. And then the writers and the producer said to me, can you learn Russian? And I was like, well, if you give me a couple of days and I work with a dialogue coach, yes, I can phonetically learn it. But then because of schedules and whether things move around, suddenly it was 10 o'clock at night, and they went, okay, well, tomorrow morning we'll be shooting that scene where you have 8 lines of dialogue. And where I was feeling really strong and confident as an actor, I walked onto set literally sweating profusely and shaking. And the makeup artist was like, Sean, are you okay? What's going on? And I was like, what's going on is I've only had 7 hours to learn this Russian dialogue. And I'm nervous. I'm nervous that I'm not going to be able to do a good job. And luckily, the director, I think, of that episode was an English director, Simon Sealand Jones, and he sort of came up to me in Costa Ronin, and Costa Ronin is Russian. They'd hired a Russian to act opposite me. So, Costa was Russian, and obviously, Costa had been working on the Americans for so many seasons. And so, my Russian needs to be flipping good. And Simon sort of came up to myself and Costa and said, let's quickly do a word run of the scene. And I sort of did my lines, which was something like, how did it go? It was like, я получил positive, я получил positive, я сюда пришел, or something like that. And Costa was like, yeah, that sounds authentic. And the director was, okay, Sean, I can see you nervous. So let's put 2 cameras on you and shoot you out of the scene as quickly as possible. So it was really challenging, but it's this whole thing, where people say to you, if something doesn't scare you, if your dreams don't scare you, then you aren't dreaming. Your dreams aren't big enough. And once I was able to do that, once I was able to learn fluent Russian within 7 hours and actually deliver and do a good job and be complimented and suddenly be written into more episodes. When it came to Blood Drive, I really need to once again thank John Levin, because he was John was the showrunner on Shooter. And they'd already started shooting Blood Drive in South Africa, and the actor that they'd hired to play Old Man Hart in Blood Drive, the actor that they'd hired, it's quite controversial, but he basically was maybe in Cape Town for maybe 2 days and then wasn't working on the production anymore. Let's just put it that way. And I got a phone call from John, and he said to me, look, we're shooting Blood Drive for the next 4 months in Cape Town. This one actor hasn't worked out. Would you love to fly to Cape Town and play Old Man Hart, who's this kind of Texan American character? And John, sort of stroked my ego in a sense and said to me, Sean, you've on Black Sails, you've played this British character. You've now played a Russian character. I love you as an actor, and I have no doubt that whatever role I throw at you, I know that you are gonna, lose yourself in this character and give it, 100%. And so yeah, that's basically how I got Blood Drive, and because I'm naturally, I'm South African, and I played, my stepdad's English. I've maybe got a bit of a British sort of twang to me. I sort of spoke with friends and was like, do I need to sit down with an American dialect coach and work on my American accent to play Old Man Hard and Blood Drive? And they were like, no, Sean, if you feel confident in who you are as an actor and what you're going to bring to the role, just do that. And it was one of these interesting things. But as I say, because my confidence on Shooter, sort of shot through the roof, and then with Blood Drive, absolutely, I felt very, very confident in working on Blood Drive, and once again playing a really powerful, intense character.
Well, it definitely shows, because for anybody who hasn't seen Blood Drive, that your character is actually, even though he's not, I wouldn't say that he's like the one of the main characters, his story arc is so incredibly important, and your portrayal of that story arc is just, it's spot on. It's so deliciously good. So you can really tell that that there was a whole lot of big confidence going in with that role. You nailed it. You just nailed it.
Thank you so much. I mean, obviously, I was scared about playing old. Well, not scared. I was nervous in one way about playing Old Man Hart, because the character, and it was the same with Black Sails. I mean, I'm 48 years old. In Black Sails, Richard Guthrie was written for somebody in their 60s. On Blood Drive, Old Man Hart was once again written for a character in his 60s, 70s. And so every morning I would spend about 2 hours in the makeup truck going through extensive prosthetics. Where they used a product called green marble, where they basically paint your face with this glue, so that when you frown, all your frown marks and wrinkles are just sort of accentuated, and they would sort of paint liver spots onto me, and paint my hair pure white. And it was really interesting because when I literally finished shooting on Shooter, and 2 weeks later they had to kind of write Old Man Hart out of the first 2 episodes of Blood Drive. They really started shooting, so they had to adjust the script to accommodate me. I'm coming into the series, so that's why in the first 2-3 episodes of Blood Drive, you only see Old Man Hart's hands. You see him maybe having a drink or painting his nails or something like that. Which I then quickly, when I arrived in Cape Town, quickly went to go shoot those scenes for those episodes. But yeah, when I arrived on set and did my first scene, I mean, nobody really had any idea how I was actually going to be playing the character, or how he was going to sound, what he was really going to look like. That was all kind of made up, in the moment. And it was only when I, did my first sort of boardroom scene, and the character sort of came out, and I sort of went with it. And it was a very, very tricky thing, because most of my scenes were with Colin Cunningham, who plays Slink. And Colin is such an incredible actor. And his portrayal of Slink, is just so big and over the top and crazy. He's this master of ceremonies. And I was nervous because Colin is one of your main characters in the story, and his character is really big, but at the same time, I'm playing his boss. And I was worried about, that there would be this sort of power struggle in a way between the two of us. He's supposed to be really, really big and powerful and over the top, but at the same time, I'm playing his boss. I also need to be really big and powerful. And so but Colin's amazing. And we both knew within, I know this sounds corny, but literally within 1 minute, we both knew that we respected one another as artists, and it was all about the story. It was all about the show. And that happened in our first scene together, where he walked into the boardroom. I'm sitting obviously at the head of the table, and his character sort of walks into the room and he puts his feet on the table. And as I turn and look at him, he takes his feet off the table, sort of showing respect. And so it was this continual game that we were playing with one another. But at the same time, being respectful of one another and being respectful of that it's all about the story and where we need to go with it. So, you really, really are only as good. It doesn't matter what you're working on. You're really only as good as the people that you're acting opposite or with or alongside. And obviously, the rest of your cast and crew. It really is a team effort.
Now, first of all, congratulations for relocating out here to Los Angeles.
Thank you.
Green card. I think you should go for citizenship as well. So then
no, definitely.
African American, like me and Yardley. But what has it been like since you've relocated now, and now that you are living in my city, Los Angeles? Do you enjoy living here in LA? How have the opportunities have changed? And it's interesting that you went back to Cape Town to do that part. But what has your experience been since you've relocated?
Well, first of all, I really, really do love Los Angeles. It's very similar to Cape Town. Cape Town's got its mountains and the beaches, and Cape Town certainly is a very eclectic mix of different cultures and races, and South Africans are called the Rainbow Nation, and so I love that specifically about Los Angeles and also New York. The fact that it is this sort of melting pot of different cultures and everything. From an industry point of view, coming over here, having my green card, joining SAG, becoming a union actor, having worked in South Africa where we have no unions, it really is a big deal. In South Africa, because there are no unions, whether you're working on a movie that's got a budget of $100,000 or $150 million, you'll always just get paid a standard day rate and get no residuals whatsoever for your work. So if you work on a TV series, irrelevant of that, if those episodes are screened 1,000 times on 50 different channels in 100 countries, you won't get any residuals on that. And being part of SAG here in the States, you get residual checks. Sometimes those residual checks are for 65 cents, but sometimes those residual checks are for a couple of $100 or maybe $1,000. And so for the first time, as an actor or as an artist, I realized, oh my God, this is how actors actually survive and pay the rent in between jobs. It's from those residual checks. And because there are these unions in the States, when I work on things, American TV series or film over here, I'm working onto a set that isn't necessarily a low budget indie production. I'm walking onto a set with cast and crew are all part of unions. They're all getting their day rates. They're all really happy. It's for me, a very happy professional environment where there's this, in my experience thus far over the past 3.5 years, there's just this mutual respect for one another, because you're working with, with award-winning actors and directors and producers, Emmy nominated or Golden Globe nominated people. So I find the experience of working here amazing because there is this mutual respect. As I said, that has been my experience working over here. And nothing against South Africa. I continually go back to South Africa. I still have family and friends over there. Even though I'm, a permanent resident over here, and definitely will be going for my citizenship in a year and a half or 2 years' time. I still feel I'm South African. I'm proud of my country, and I still try to be supportive of the industry over there. That said, when I booked my first job, it was funny. My first American job, which was in a series called Kings and Prophets, which was on ABC, which was also shooting in Cape Town. So, but I booked it as a SAG actor. So, suddenly I got flown business class to Cape Town. And when I arrived in Cape Town, the production company came to me and they were like, "Welcome to South Africa. Here's a welcome pack. We have biltong, which is like beef jerky, And I suddenly got treated differently because I'm now an American actor or I'm SAG or whatever. And for me, one would have thought it would have been cool. Oh my God, I booked my first SAG job. I'm flying back to my home country to film a movie. And it actually had the opposite effect for me because this crew that I'd been working with, film crew that I'd been working with for the past 20 years, and suddenly now I was being treated differently because I was regarded as an American actor or a SAG actor. Mm. For me, it was a weird thing, because actors, should be treated with respect. All cast included, everybody should be treated with respect. And in South Africa, unfortunately, there isn't, there just isn't necessarily that. There isn't that respect because of those unions. It's kind of, well, we'll pay you whatever we want to, and we'll kind of treat you however way we want to. Because if you're not prepared to do it, there's hundreds of thousands of other actors who will, and there's nothing you can really do about it. So that's sort of the one unfortunate thing.
Now, if I don't ask you this, are your Black Sails fans? But when you saw that Zach McGowan's character Vane was killed off the show, was there part of you that said that's what he gets for what he did?
It's. I think when we did the last interview, maybe two or 3 years ago, luckily and this is the one, this is the one big thing for me, over the past sort of 2-3 years in the States, that I've learned that it really is all about story. It is about the show. And I think I've become quite bohemian or quite spiritual in a sense that I've realized that we're all on our own journey, right? We're all on our own journey as actors, as human beings, and we all need to experience whatever we need to experience. And I've realized that for me as an actor, when I look at other actors get amazing jobs, and let's say, instead of me being envious of them and going, why didn't I get that job? What's wrong with my agent or my manager, whatever. I'm actually really, I'm supportive of them and I'm excited for them because that's their journey. But to actually answer your question about Zach McGowan, no, I mean, Richard Guthrie, when
not him, but the character. you had to say to Eleanor or Hannah New, that's my girl.
Man, when John Steinberg and Robert Levine and the guys, told me that Richard Guthrie was going to die, it was one of those things purely from a storytelling point of view. I mean, obviously, as an actor, you think, oh my God, do I suck as an actor? That's why they're killing me off. But they said, we had to do something. We had to do something. What could make, what could cause this permanent rift between Eleanor and Charles Vane? And it was him killing her father, Richard Guthrie. And so no, absolutely. I mean, when Charles Vane was killed off, I mean, obviously he had such an incredible fan base, and so that was really, really shocking for the fan base. And at the time, I thought it was a very sort of risky move. I mean, Black Sails, did so well. It had, once again, had such an incredible following, and such an incredible support base. And I think for the writers and the producers on the show, Starz, and certainly Chris Albrecht, the head of Starz, giving the show so many seasons, being able to sort of tell that story, what was amazing. And that's certainly, for a lot of shows, these days, going on to streaming services, whether it be Hulu or crackle or sci-fi or whatever. A lot of writers and directors and producers find that they have a lot of freedom. When their show is going to be on a streaming service or on a cable network, because sometimes or most of the time, they're almost guaranteed, great, you're going to have 1 season or 2 seasons or 3 seasons. So there's no hard feelings about Black Sails. I mean, for me, it was an incredible opportunity, and ultimately, led to my relocating over here.
Yeah, and something else as far as, because we've had actors on the show. I guess Kente brought this up. I guess we're like a curse because we tend to get people on and they end up dying. But yeah, I know that's kind of that's the cross that we carry here at Indie Radio. But some actors, after they get killed off, they say, hey, you know what? Once I left the show, I stopped watching. Did you keep tracking the show all the way through to the end? And if you did, I'm very curious. How did you feel? What type of a job do you think that they did as far as closing out the series, but also leaving those threads open? Because we know that some of these stories continue on to Treasure Island, and some of the historical characters have their own things going on. So did you track that, and did you feel like it was solid? And I mean, just I know that you would never say, no, I thought it sucked. But did you feel like it ended in a way that that you felt was satisfying for yourself personally?
Well, 2 things. I mean, one, I'm really good friends with Hakeem Kekazin, obviously, who plays Mr. Scott, and I try to keep in touch with Zach and with the rest of the guys. So absolutely, when I had the opportunity, I was watching Black Sails and following it and sort of seeing audience response to it. What I can tell you about the last, about the seasons that I wasn't in, is that every time, so when it came to season 3, when it came to season 4, the writers and the producers had to keep on upping the stakes. So it's, I do know that that means that it becomes really sort of tough filmmaking, because those schedules start sort of going through the roof. And I think at one point, apparently, I don't know, I wasn't there, but they maybe had sort of 3 film units busy filming at the same time, trying to get all this footage, and because of all these major action sequences. So I know that it was a tough shoot, but obviously, the channel and the audiences were demanding, each season, having to up the stakes and make it even more big and more, over the top and crazy. And with regard to the ending of the show, of the actual season or finale, I mean, I think it was it's a tricky thing. I mean, I think it was ambiguous. I know that the audience response was, well, okay. Yeah, I don't think. I mean, I don't think an audience, especially if they've been watching something for a couple of years and they've fallen in love with these characters and their journey, they don't want it to come to an end. But I think it's amazing that Black Sails ended on a high note. Mm-hmm. It ended with a bang, and they. Everybody, the actors and all the cast and the crew and everybody involved with it really, gave everything, because they knew that they possibly weren't going to get another season and was coming to an end. So I think absolutely, rather end on a high than carry on for another 3 seasons after that, and then it kind of becomes boring.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's no such thing as too much of a good thing, but sometimes when you too much of a good thing that just lasts forever, then you'll start disliking that good thing. So I think they went out at the perfect timing, and I thought it was great. And also, I have to say that, like I said, your character definitely was one of the characters that the fan base really connected to. And the show has gotten bigger since the show went off the air, to the point where there's so many people I've met. Like I've said this before, that there was a time where I would tell them I do this podcast based on the show called Black Sales, and people would be like, "No, what are you talking about? What is it?" You know. And then now it's like, so I still kind of have that in the back of my head. I have to explain what it is, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, I love that show." Like now, like, you know, because it's new for them, because they're just now catching it on. It must be on Hulu or one of those. I'm not quite sure where people.
Yeah, it's either Netflix or Hulu. It's definitely on one of those. I've seen it there, and you know, it's. I mean, obviously, you know, obviously, as well, you know, when I read the original scripts for season 1 of Black Sails, Richard, you know, there's a point where, you know, Richard Guthrie, you know, obviously he gets shot and his hand gets broken, and then he goes to stay with Mr. Underhill, you know, in the plantations or whatever. And the original scripts for season 1, you know, I'd read the whole of season 1, and what we were going to do with season 1 is we were going to spend half, especially the last 5 episodes, we were going to spend in the plantations with Richard Guthrie and Mr. Underhill, and really, you know, follow that storyline. But at that point, the production wasn't. It was going to cost too much money to basically sort of go on completely on location. I go build all these plantations and go, you know, move all these units to go film there. So where I would have ended up being, let's say, in 9 episodes of season 1, I only ended up being in maybe in 4 or 5 episodes of season 1. And then with season 2, I think halfway through the season 2, as I say, they decided they wanted to kill the character of Richard Guthrie off. Obviously, I was hoping that, because certainly in season 3, there was a lot of flashbacks to, you know, Mrs. Barlow and her backstory with Flint. And what I was hoping, and there was originally the intention to do a lot of backstory to Richard Guthrie. I mean, and especially Eleanor as a child. And I was so looking forward to doing that, because I was playing a character who was in his, you know, 60s. I was looking forward to actually sort of playing myself, without the grey hair. You know, actually playing a character in the 40s with and they apparently they didn't. I think been casting for, you know, a young Eleanor as well. So I was hoping that maybe in season 3 or 4, whatever, we would actually go there, and I would have loved to have gone back, you know, and, you know, visited that. But you know, as I said before, you know, you know, what I've also realized is that I think for my own sanity is that, you know, my job is to go in there and do the best work that I can possibly do, you know, bring whatever I can to a role with the amount of time that I've got, preparation time I've got, do my research and throw myself into something. And where that goes, whether it's a TV series, whether that TV series gets renewed, whether the people love it or hate it, the same with the movie, you know, whether the movie ever makes it out of post-production and gets released, how audiences are going to respond to it. You know, all of that stuff's actually got nothing to do with me. You know, my job is to go there and do my best possible work, and how that is eventually perceived by an audience, what the ratings are going to be like. I have no control over that stuff. Obviously, when a show or a movie comes out, I'm going to be, you know, I feel that it's part of my job to, yeah, absolutely, live tweet and promote and, you know, and be supportive of it and stand by, you know, the work that I've done in it, or on it. But ultimately, you know, how a show is perceived, whether or not it gets a renewal, whether people love it or hate it, you know, I have no control over that. And it's I mean, I really take my hat off to writers and producers, you know, making new content, and because, you know, it was the same with Shooter. You know, when we had finished shooting season 1 of Shooter, there were all these shootings. There were all these shootings, and they had to keep on delaying the release of the show, because they were like, wow, you know, there's been all these shootings. We all these mass shootings and stuff. You know, we can't release the show. It's gonna be nobody's gonna watch it. It's gonna be too insensitive. And they kept on trying to they kept on delaying the release of the original season 1 of Shooter. And to me, it's such a weird thing. I mean, obviously, it's a choice of the networks. They have to do what they believe is the right thing. But at the same time, I also believe that audiences today are mature enough to realize, what is fact and what is fiction, and what is real and what isn't real. It's that whole different argument about people playing video games. Does that lead to them becoming psycho violent people and all that?
Hey, if so, I'm really psycho.
I could tell that about you. I'm kidding.
So we've talked to a lot of actors, and they talk often about having kind of a bucket list of things that they want to, kind of roles they want to portray or whatnot. Is there any kind of character that you really would love to play? Because you've done quite a bit. You've done all kinds of sorts of characters. Is there one in specific?
I mean, what I liked about Last Broken Darkness, that hopefully is still going to get international distribution still this year, and hopefully get out onto a streaming service, something like that. What I liked about Last Broken Darkness, he's actually a normal guy. He's not a baddie. He's a normal guy. Who's lost his wife and lost his son, and he's sort of dealing with that. And sorry, I've got a new movie also hopefully coming out this year called The Last Victims, which I'm certainly the most challenging, heaviest, painful role that I've played. So I'm really excited for audiences to see Last Victims when that finally comes out. That's for a sort of dream role. The sort of dream directors or dream shows that I really want to work on. I really want to work with Ryan Murphy and American Horror Story. That's a show I really, really want to get on and work on. But I've been tweeting Mr. Murphy, and he's just not responding. So for me, it's not really about roles. It's about directors and producers and actors and people that I want to work with. So it's really about that. The ultimate role, this is a question that I have been asked a couple of times, and I've really sort of sat down and think, what would I really like to do? What is like the ultimate role? And singing and music has been also a really, really big passion of mine, since I was a kid. And I in my 20s, I did quite a bit of composing music and actually quite a bit of hip hop music, which is quite odd. But and so also coming from a musical theatre background, I would love to do a role, do a movie or a series that involves that, where I'm singing and acting. So if somebody was doing a biographical movie of the life of David Bowie or Bowie, that for me, would be the ultimate role. Playing David Bowie in a movie, or doing something, a movie that incorporates the singing and the acting, because it's just something that people don't really know about me. I think maybe 3 years ago I did a musical sort of piece back in South Africa, but other than that, I haven't actually, I kind of had to choose, either acting, TV and film and theatre, or music, and for me, because I think most actors have obsessive personalities. I've had to sort of focus on my acting for the past 20 years, and I haven't really pursued the music side of things. So that is something I would love to pursue or get the opportunity to play around with.
All right. Well, Sean, before we get out of here, are there any projects that you want to alert us of that you have coming out?
Yeah. As I said, there's Last Broken Darkness. But yeah, I mean, you guys know I'm pretty good on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and these things. So yeah, I mean, the minute we have dates for Last Broken Darkness, I'll let you guys know. It's a fun, what am I? It's fun. It's a pretty heavy post-apocalyptic dystopian future movie. So that one was good, right? And certainly Last Victims. We're hoping to get Last Victims into the sort of European and also Canadian film festivals in September, October this year. So, and obviously if it gets into those, then hopefully they'll get North American distribution for that. So, yes, The Last Victims is definitely one to look out for. And then I've also got a couple of other projects, but as I said before, movie making, TV series, wow. When those guys stand up at the Academy Awards and they've won their Oscar, or they've won their Emmy or their Golden Globe, and they say, yeah, it's taken us 8 years to get this project off the ground. I mean, sometimes it really does. So I've got two other projects. I've got a trilogy of movies called AST. Which we were hoping still to get off the ground this year, but it's probably not going to happen. Hopefully, at the beginning of next year. Which, so it's a trilogy of movies, American sort of kick-ass femme fatale lead, very sort of Atomic Blonde, Red Sparrow kind of characters, and so I'm one of the leads in that. So we're hoping to get that off the ground. And we aren't quite sure. We were hoping to maybe film all of it here in the States, but now we're sort of looking at Europe or Africa as well. It is one of those movies that does sort of, so that's a pretty big action movie, as I said, which we're hoping to get filmed in the beginning of next year. I've also got a big British TV series that I can't say anything about.
Oh wow!
Which we also hoping to get off the ground if they get their ducks in a row in the course of the next 2-3 months. That one's a pretty big one. Something that's a role, a kind of character that I've never played before. It's a really hardcore action, kick-ass, MI5 sort of James Bondy type thing, which is not something that I've really done before. Even though I've done action movies, it's not something that I've really done. So that's going to require me to spend about 2-3 months in training, getting a six-pack going. And
so I might see you running up Runyon Canyon or something.
then you know shit's going down. There we go.
Oh wow! Thank you so much for coming back on the program. We are all huge fans of your work. And we've, wanted any excuse to get you back on. And, you've been doing so wonderful in your post-Black Sales career and your career as a whole. How can people get you in social media? And do you have a website that people should be aware of?
My handle is Sean C. Michael on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. So if you just type in Sean C. Michael, you'll find me there.
All right.
I really appreciate the support, guys. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you. And Jen, how can people get you on social media and all that?
I am following Bliss1 on Twitter, and my new website is moviesmakethemeal.com. And you can always find some ramblings and some interesting TV reviews on criticallaughs.com as well.
All right. And Yardley, how can people get you on social media?
You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at militant_marker. And just to give people a heads up on my podcast, Creeping It Real, we actually did a review for the movie Hereditary. So if none of you have seen that movie, I recommend it because I actually enjoyed it.
It was great.
It was a fantastic.
So was the podcast.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Fantastic movie. You can get me at Kente F on Twitter, and you can go to our website at indieradio.org. We'll be back on I believe Tuesday to continue our Black Sales retrospective. I think we're doing Max, right? Is the character
Max and Ann?
Max and Ann Bonnie. So that's on Tuesday.
Hello, man.
And you know, obviously, me and Yardley were big fans of those characters for many reasons. So, so we will be doing that on Tuesday. You guys have a great weekend. God bless, and we'll see you next time.